Let's be honest, did the most popular crypto hardware wallet company, Ledger, really put billions of dollars in user funds at risk? What the heck is this Ledger wallet backdoor everyone's talking about? What is Ledger recovery? There are so many questions that are setting the entire crypto world ablaze right now on social media. And today, I'm going to cut through the hyperbole and give you the straight up fact-based analysis of what happened, what all this means, and what you need to do about it, if anything. So hit the subscribe button, get comfortable, and stick around till the end of the video. First things first though, what started this whole mess in the first place? All this drama, for what? This past week, Ledger announced a new feature called Ledger Recover, which was included in the latest firmware update for their popular hardware wallet devices to store cryptocurrency. This Ledger Recover feature was described as an optional paid service that would allow a Ledger wallet owner to back up their private key, the fundamental signing instrument to prove ownership of and transact with your cryptocurrency, for safekeeping. The backup is constituted by 3 encrypted chunks or shards held by Ledger and 2 other third-party custodians. In effect, this feature was built as a way to prevent users from losing their crypto in the event that they lose their seed phrase and subsequently lose or break their hardware wallet, because there would now be a backup to recover from. Immediately after this news dropped, however, the outrage began, with influencers, thought leaders, and everyday crypto investors who use Ledger wallets flying off the handle. The summarized version of the criticism is that Ledger Recover features, albeit optional, provide a mechanism to remove the private key from the hardware wallet's secure hardware, eroding its security model altogether. Now, we're going to talk a lot about what is actually happening here in a second, so stick with me. To the casual observer, you'd have thought that Ledger just sold user iris scans to the CIA and auctioned crypto on eBay. The reaction was swift and it was deafening. But was it warranted? Is this truly an existential threat for Ledger's customers and their crypto? Let's break down the facts. I'll first tell you how this feature actually works, since descriptions online are generally pretty bad, and then I'll tell you whether you need to worry about this if you are a Ledger owner. Ledger Recover is a feature that relies on a mechanism called Shamir secret sharing, or a Shamir backup as it's often called, and other wallets do support this, like Trezor. More on that later. Without flying off into a technical rabbit hole that most people will honestly ignore anyway, Shamir secret sharing is a mechanism that allows you to break your private key, or allows your wallet to break your private key into a defined number of shares. And those shares can be used to recover your private key in the case that you lose your seed phrase, that 12 or 24 words that I hope you wrote down when you create your wallet. When Ledger says they allow you to split your private key into 3 encrypted shards, this is what they're talking about. Because then you can give 1 share to 3 separate custodians who will each not be able to recover your private key and access funds without having the other shares in this Shamir backup scheme. You have 2 main decisions in a Shamir backup scheme: your key share count and your threshold, which is the number of shares you must produce to recover the private key. For Ledger, based on what I've been able to find, they chose a 2 of 3 Shamir backup, which means they chose to create 3 key shares and 2 is their threshold, meaning wallet recovery requires 2 decrypted key shares. Each shard in and of itself is useless on its own. It's only useful put together with others. So in this scheme, the 3 key shares that would be stored by Ledger and its custodians are critical to recovering your key. Only 2 of them are. The main issue people have is the means by which you actually get these shards into the hands of the custodians, because it means you have to have firmware that allows sensitive material, like the Shamir key shares, to exit the device's secure hardware and go over the big, scary, dangerous internet to be safeguarded by the custodians. That's not great, okay? You're writing an explicit path for sensitive data to leave the hardware wallet device, which is the express purpose of the hardware itself, to keep your private key cold or disconnected from the internet. A cold storage wallet, right? The additional egregious detail here that made the rounds online is that this custodial feature requires Know Your Customer, or KYC, which is identity verification to store your key shares. This, of course, has privacy implications, so that will never be popular in this community. They probably should realize that. But the big question is, should you be worried about this if you're a Ledger owner? Does this mean your funds are at risk if you don't opt in for this Ledger recovery feature? Because it's optional, right? Again, let's remove the emotion from this and look at the facts. Is this feature ideal from an attack surface perspective? No, unequivocally no. For security, a hardware wallet for cold storage would ideally have absolutely no path for sensitive material to leave the secure element of the device, even in encrypted format, ever. In fact, in an ideal world, you want your hardware wallet to have no access to I/O at all, both USB-C and the internet altogether. But the elephant in the room is that it's not possible to build a truly and completely air-gapped device because your wallet has to be able to pass signed transaction data to the internet to be broadcast and processed on public blockchains. And secondly, every single wallet, and this is the kicker, must support firmware updates to expand the ever-growing list of blockchains it supports and new features that those blockchains add. Users like you and me demand that. You would not accept a wallet that becomes obsolete every several months or every several weeks, would you? That firmware that you install controls every tiny detail about the operations of the device, including how it handles secure operations. And the worst part, it's opaque. Most of the time, if not all the time, that software cannot be audited by you or me before we install it. If you don't trust the issuer of that firmware, like Ledger, you are treading in muddy water already because they can release malicious firmware that exposes your private key with relative ease, and you won't know about it. Security is not something that can be measured in absolute terms. It's a gradient. It's a fluid battle between defenses and methods of exploitation. So it's not possible to build a 100% secure solution, period. Therefore, security researchers express things in terms of probabilities, likelihood of exploitation, and severity of exploitation. The truth is, despite the clear issues with this feature, Ledger Recover is not the most likely path to loss of crypto for users of Ledger devices, okay? Users are much more likely to lose their crypto due to simple mistakes like signing a nefarious transaction with their wallet, losing their seed phrase, or exposing their seed phrase to a third party than they are to lose their crypto to Ledger Recover, okay? However, that does not absolve Ledger of this travesty, and that is not the final answer, because this firmware update and Ledger's tech stack is pretty much entirely closed source. No one can verify what exactly is happening on the device so that we can accurately measure the risk in any meaningful way. I cannot find, for one, how the 3 key shares are encrypted on the device and with what key. I can't find info about the implementation of Shamir secret sharing to verify its quality. Was it done properly? If some government compelled Ledger to give up the key shares for a given user for confiscation of funds, could Ledger even do so if they wanted to? I don't know for sure. Equally, I cannot verify unequivocally that if I don't enable this feature, this optional feature, that there isn't some obscure chink in the armor that puts my funds at risk. This is the major issue. Hardware wallets are built on trust at every single layer, not just hardware. In the absence of the ability to verify things with open source code, you cannot have a high degree of confidence in an evaluation of risk. So you'll naturally come to ask me, can I trust a Ledger device to store my crypto if I don't opt into this feature? And my answer is probably. But I can't be sure because I can't verify the implementation of this feature myself, and therein lies the problem. Therefore, you must decide if you're willing to trust Ledger or not, just like you have been for years already if you've owned and used their wallets. With Ledger and many, if not all of its competitors, you are trading ideal security designed for convenience, and that's always been the case, even before Ledger Recover was even a thought. Now, that's the most mind-blowing part about this whole thing. This crash course of poor corporate communications has blown the lid off of an intractable problem that this space faces today that we need to solve. Hardware wallets are not the answer to crypto security for the masses. Full stop. Seed phrases are an albatross around the necks of every crypto user, a ticking time bomb. And due to the breakneck pace of development and new blockchains and new updates to those blockchains, hardware wallets require the user to place a high degree of trust in manufacturers and developers of firmware for these devices, and that erodes the security guarantees implicit to the device's intended purpose. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't get a hardware wallet. I would still recommend a hardware wallet over a mobile wallet every day of the week. It's better than the alternative, but it's not nearly good enough. Multi-sig schemes like Safe, formerly Gnosis Safe, are the best available option at present. Likely combining multi-sig with Shamir secret sharing is the best, but they're hard to set up and impossible to manage. And we're nowhere near mass adoption because we've not found a way to make self-custody accessible to the masses. And it's a non-negotiable principle of what we're building here, is it not? If I have to trust a hardware manufacturer, a firmware developer, a chip manufacturer, a shipper, and logistics and supply chain to hold my own keys, and then I can still blow it all up and lose it all by losing a piece of paper, we are not at the level of maturity we need to be at, are we? There are two main mantras in crypto that I think are really pertinent here, and I try to follow in my life as best I can. Trust but verify, and can't be evil beats won't be evil. A DAO or company can earn my trust by proving themselves to be trustworthy through action, but I will always still wish to verify their claims with my own eyes and my own skill. Open source code is a great step to doing that. Every hardware wallet manufacturer should strive for that at every layer of their stack, including hardware. Why? Because it breeds the accountability that makes them build products that remove their ability to act against the interest of their users, because it's transparent. If a power or a loophole exists, it will one day be exploited, because trust is broken. Trust can be broken. If a power doesn't exist in the first place, then you don't have to trust anyone not to use that power. You don't have to take their word for it. Can't be evil always beats a promise that one won't be evil. Ledger mishandled the situation in every way, from their haphazard communication, poor execution, lack of self-awareness to know that this wouldn't be well received by its self-custody conscious audience, and worse yet, they've at times gaslit their customers and community members in their response to the anger about this debacle. And you'd think, why would they even do this in the first place? Because they're a company of a certain size, and they have a market share that needs to grow. They've sold wallets to a lot of people, and wallets are not like smartphones. You don't buy one every year. It sits in your closet unused for most users. So they need to monetize their users monthly for services to continue to grow. That's where this came from, which is why I said can't be evil is better than won't be evil. Everyone is corruptible and everyone is prone to mistakes. And I said earlier that the hardware wallet business is built precariously on trust, and trust broken is not easily repaired. So while I cannot say with definitive confidence that Ledger Recover puts any funds at risk for those who don't opt in to use it, but I also can't say for sure that it doesn't put your funds at risk, and that's where the trust comes in. Do you trust Ledger? Your answer to that question is the exact answer I'd give you as to whether you should keep using Ledger products or to look elsewhere. And if you're looking elsewhere for a home for your crypto, I recommend you look at multi-sigs like Safe. But if that's too much work, there are open source alternatives that I've recommended for a while in the hardware wallet space, and you can find links to those wallets in the description. The one with the most wide coin support and solid UX is Keystone, whom I've featured on this channel for years now, and I'm glad they're now getting attention as a result of all this. They're continuing to open source their products and more of their stack, and I use them myself. For Bitcoin only people, Coldcard is the standard. It's a great wallet with open source code to boot. And by the way, if people are concerned about Shamir secret sharing and exporting key shares from the wallet, Trezor allows you to do that, and they have for a long time, just not with custodians on the other end, so it's not over the internet. Fair warning, I don't think that's an issue, but some might. Point being, if you don't trust the manufacturer, odds are you don't want to use the wallet. And the last thing I'm going to say on this is that Ledger did not do this, in my opinion, from a place of malice or in any way a nefarious act. They're trying to solve a problem that is really real in this space. People lose their wallets, people make mistakes, people lose their hardware and don't have a seed phrase backed up, and then they complain to Ledger about it. So if you're a product company, you think, well, let's solve the biggest challenge that our customers are facing, and we'll charge them monthly for it. They were trying to solve a problem. It was the execution and the communication that was completely off. They completely did not understand their core audience, and that is the issue. But they did you all a favor. They did me a favor. They did everyone a favor in this space. They laid to bear the issues with hardware wallets that need to be solved, and they showed us just where we are in the adoption curve of this technology. We're here. We need to be here. The maturity of this technology for self-custody needs to be way better than it is now. Hardware wallets are okay. They're good. They're better than hot wallets and mobile wallets, but they're not good enough. And if you're concerned about keeping your cryptocurrency safe, then you absolutely should not be ignoring these best practices when it comes to security. So I'm going to leave a video right here for you to check out that has all the details you need to know about personal OPSEC. Really important topic. Most of all, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, cheers.